There we go. And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast, video and audio. For those who have listened, or if this is your first time, make sure you hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, however you watch or listen to us ramble about hockey. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to send us a message on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or send us an email. And then just a reminder, please do not get up while the puck's in play. Please wait for whistle. Let's get into it. Got a lot of games to cover this week, oddly enough, between like Chicago and Rockford and prospects. We've got quite a bit of hockey. But first, let's go on the NHL scope. Not really a ton, but, you know, some different things. Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour are back for the Florida Panthers, which makes me really believe that Patrick Kane is not going to the Florida Panthers, because now they officially have absolutely no room cap-wise. Their cap space that they had for Patrick Kane was Aaron Ekblad's contract. And like I explained last week, or 2 weeks ago, one of the weeks prior to this week, that when they're on injured reserve, their salary really doesn't count against the cap, but now it will. So Florida really doesn't have any room.
Yep. Florida gets back to key pieces. Probably their top pair defensemen.
Which good for them. Good for them.
Yep.
Other thing is I don't know really. I just know that there has been a lot of speculation in terms of William Nylander and like where he's going to go, if he's going to stay in Toronto. I don't know why it's become a thing this week. I don't know if just like beat reporters are over, you know, talking about Connor Bedard on a weekly basis, and they've just jumped to a different team. I don't know why, or if there was an origin for this, but there's been a lot of speculation where William Nylander, does he stay in Toronto? Does he go at the end of the year? Does he go at the trade deadline? Does he go now? Because as we talked about over the summer, Toronto's gonna have some salary cap problems within the next couple of years. They've got two of their guys, their contract ends at the end of this season, and then the next two end the following season. So money-wise, Toronto's got a lot to figure out.
Yeah, and as far as all the talk, it's Toronto. So that's the epicenter of hockey. So that's where everybody reports from. Plus, I believe they went over to Sweden also. And
that was really cool to see all of Nylander's family and everything. Like that was cool.
Yeah. So you had a lot of reporters for that. And plus he lit it up in those two games also. So, we'll see what happens with that.
I think he's on like an 18-point streak or whatever. It's a little insane.
Yeah. He's, the dollars just keep on adding up. That's the way you go into a contract year. That's how you play it.
Yeah. As he should. What are your thoughts in terms of, well, first off, do we think he stays in Toronto, or do we think he goes to another team?
I believe he stays in Toronto. I believe they're just going to keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again. I think at the end of the day, they'll end up paying him $10 million or something, with the hopes of the cap continues to increase. Basically because they don't have any balls. In order to trade him during the season, you're going to get some stuff back and everything, but that's a major decision. And at the end of the day, I just believe the past regime, this regime, both of them were just too scared to.
I don't believe part of, and I say this as a Dubas supporter, I don't know all the full control Dubas had, which I don't believe he had as much control over what he could do versus the person now.
Right. But I believe he was never ixnayed as far as trading any of the top four. He was ixnayed about bringing other pieces in, but I don't think he ever went to them with, let's trade Marner, let's trade Nylander, let's trade one of the top four.
No, I don't want to say somebody doesn't have balls when I don't think that they had been 100% control in their job.
Okay, well, you don't have to. I said neither of them do. So
fair enough.
I'll be on record for saying that. But so that's why I ultimately think at the end of the day, he stays. It's easier.
Right.
That's a big ask. If you trade him, you still got to deliver in the next couple of years. And what did you get from you speed up the hate? But again,
we could take him.
You're still stuck in the same spot.
We could take him. We have the money.
We do have the money. We could take him. It wouldn't be a bad thing to take him. They are going to need to take somebody like him. They need somebody a little bit older who's a darn good hockey player to come in next year. So
whereas right now we just have some players that are a little bit older and they're not darn good hockey players.
No, they are not. And the help needs to start probably next year. Mm-hmm. The other kids are not going to be ready for 2 or 3. So just the way it is. Well, but that's my take on the Nylander.
Fair enough. That's our NHL scope. So we'll do some prospects before we go into Rockford and then Chicago, because I believe we've got 2 Rockford games and 3 Hawks games to report on for this past week.
Joy Rapture.
So much fun.
Is there a winner in any of those?
We'll get to it. Big notable prospects for this week. Gavin Hayes, who I've been talking about pretty much every week since the beginning of the start of hockey season, still continues to amaze me and amaze other people. Very excited for him. One thing that I told crusty old guy and I, when we had our little preview conversation, that I talked to him about, is the vision that this kid has. Like, whether he's the one that's scoring or he's making or he's setting everything up, he just sees the ice in a way that's really cool and really fun to watch. It could be, that it's juniors, but even if it is juniors, it's still entertaining to watch. I mean, right now we don't have a ton of entertaining things to watch. So whatever league it is, if it's entertaining to watch, I'm gonna like it and I'm gonna support it. First goal was great. Second, so he had 2 goals and 2 assists against, I believe it was the Sarnia Sting. First goal, it was just great shot overall. Second goal was shorthanded on the rush. Love it. We love to see it. The other 2 main ones from this past weekend that were notable was Alex Ferrand with an excellent setup and just overall excellent game for Sudbury against North Bay. I believe he got just 1 goal against North Bay, but you see him in front of the net and he just lightly taps the puck and he's able to redirect it to the back of the net, which you love to see it. And then one of crusty old guy's favorites had a great weekend, and that is the Nick Lardis.
Oh, Lardass. Oh, anytime we can say Lardass, we're in for it.
I think the main thing that I saw is, yes, the overall play, but the wheels this kid has. Absolute wheels. I know everybody's been talking about it, but it's that good. So I'm going to mention it again.
I know. I just wish, with a name like that, he would be bigger. Because, when you're going by the name of Lardass, you just like him to be a little bigger. Okay, move on.
So those are the main ones. And then some updates in terms of stats. This is when I looked it up. I mean, nothing really would have happened yesterday. or if it did, then it might be a point difference. But just some to put in perspective, you know, if you're seeing the Hawks this weekend and you're feeling pretty negative, as I am, as I believe crusty old guy is, and I believe as many of you are, here's just some like bits about the prospects to get you a little bit excited. So with Gavin Hayes, you know, he's starting at 18 points in 16 games. Very impressive. Ledwinski, we've got 20 points in 17 games. Lardis, we've got 16 points in 17. Misiak is a point a game exactly. Nazar is looking at 13 points in 12 games. Ryan Green, who we never talk about, but I also don't see anyone actually talking about him, so I need to do some more homework and look at some more footage on him. Is looking at 8 points in 10 games. The one that I'm
Ryan Green at? Do we know?
Boston, I believe. Comesso's Boston, not Celebrini's. What's red and white and not like the crimson color? Is that Boston University?
You say so.
Cool. I'm like, I don't know college colors. It's the same colors as Ohio State. It's that red and white, not like Boston College. I know is like this like weird burnt cranberry color thing. But anyway, Slagger, who's probably impressed me the most just because this is a huge jump from him compared to last year, rocking a point a game. That C on his jersey must be doing something. We love to see it. The only ones that are not averaging a point a game or more are Oliver Moore at 8 out of 10 and then Renzel out of 7 out of 10, which is fine. Because from what I've seen, Minnesota still, don't get me wrong, Minnesota is still one of like the top college hockey schools, but they're in a little bit of a slump at the beginning of the season, compared to like others. So it's okay. Also, they're babies, so it's fine. We're not concerned. We're not worried. This is the beginning of their freshman year, so they're fine. And then another little prospect stat that I wanted to throw out there, because we rarely focus on goaltenders, and that is the goaltender pick from this past draft, Adam, I think his name is Gajan. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
I won't be correcting you on any kind of pronunciation ever on this show.
He is still over at the Green Bay Gamblers, starting off the season with a 9-3-1 record, which not bad at all. Save percentage is .917 with that's my stat. So he's having a pretty good start of the season too. So do you have anything to add for prospects or prospects my portion of the show?
Pretty well, as we've talked about even last week. They all seem to be doing well. Granted, it's early on in their careers, but they could be wetting the bed also. And most of them seem to be excelling. So that's good.
Yeah. All right, let's get into. We better off just doing Rockford and then Chicago, or do you want to do it chronologically?
Do Rockford then Chicago.
Okay. So we've got Rockford's game on the 17th. They lost in overtime. Comesso is in net. It seems like they're not really doing like a 50-50 split in terms of starting for goaltending, like how Chicago's Mrazek and Soderblom is pretty much even. I don't think it's completely Comesso's net yet, but from what I've seen, you're definitely seeing Comesso starting a bit more than Stauber is. But Comesso is in net for the game on the 17th. My big thing, and I'm going to keep saying this for all of the Rockford games, the defensemen look horrible. It looks bad. The second Milwaukee goal in that game, the camera is panned, obviously, to Comesso's net. There is not a defenseman to be seen in the whole camera frame.
That's not good.
It's forwards trying to be defensemen, but really they're just awkwardly standing there. And so Comesso's pretty much hung out to dry. The defensemen don't look good. I don't know if that's Sorensen. I don't know who that is on the Rockford bench, but something has got to change because it looked awful that game and it's still looking awful. Sorella's goal for that game looked great. It was a great rebound. Dach continues to excel. I think he's probably, if I did 3 stars for Rockford games, Colton Dach is going to be in my top 3 for most of the games, especially so far this season. Because he's standing out. Everybody else kind of just looks like, either solid AHL players or they're looking overwhelmed. They're not ready yet. Colton Dach is looking like, no, I've got something to prove and I'm going to prove it every night. He is constantly not giving up. He's playing the full 60 minutes. He's not taking shifts off like some West Coast NHL players do. This kid is just all about the effort. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Which brings me to the next night, which was the Colton Dach show. Colton Dach with a hat trick and then the game-winning goal for a shootout. Colton Dach is amazing. That'd probably be the title for this week's episode is Colton Dach is amazing. Stauber was in net. Iowa looked good, but I also think, and Chris, the old guy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So Iowa Wild, not this part, that Iowa Wild is the AHL affiliate to the Minnesota Wild. But they have a lot of good young talent on their AHL team, but they're essentially Rockford like 3 years from now. They're just a little bit further along in terms of they've got a decent group of young guys that are just more ahead in terms of like solidly, comfortably playing in the AHL, looking to be brought up to the NHL, where us in Rockford, we're just like, this babies. This is our first year.
Well, basically, Iowa and a lot of other contending teams or good teams, that's where we're hoping Rockford is in like 5 or 6 years. Because in 2 years, we're going to get a lot of these younger players. But I think the plan is for them to move right straight back up. And then in like 3 years, the Hawks will have basically a good amount of players under contract. And then the next group of young kids are going to come in and they will play down in Rockford longer just for the fact there's not a lot of spots for them at the NHL team. And that's where Iowa's at now. The Minnesota Wild, it's a team that's basically 3 lines deep at least.
Right.
So there's no spots for these younger kids, so they stay in the AHL. And that's kind of the rhythm that all of a sudden you want to get into. That's the ideal situation.
How did we get out of that rhythm?
Huh?
How did we get out of that rhythm?
Well, you got out of that rhythm because you decided to chase cups. And you decided to trade away number 1 picks and everything. At the end of the day, I'll take the 3 cups. Thank you. So, unfortunately, they continued the chase when they shouldn't have, but that's neither here nor there. You look at teams like the Minnesota Wild. Yes, Iowa's, decently stocked. Their NHL team is decently stocked. Is there a cup in their future?
No.
Probably not. Maybe in 4 years. You've got Krill under contract and everything. So there's a give and take with all of that. I'm a firm believer the way the Hawks went about it. Once that window is open, man, you got to go. Look what Tampa's doing. They know at some point in time in another 4 years, that window completely closes. So they're trading away number ones left and right. With the hope of
Thank you.
getting cheaper players now. So that's the difference. And we hope Rockford's there in like 5 years where it's not necessarily these players can't play in the NHL. There's just not a spot for them yet. And that means they'll be cheaper also.
Right.
If that makes any sense to anybody.
No, that makes sense. It makes
sense to me. So that's all I'm concerned about.
That's all that matters. Final Rockford game to talk about. Colton Dach, once again, amazing. I think one of my other favorite things, and I've said this a couple of weeks ago about Colton Dach, is his just ability to stand in front of the net constantly. One, because it gives me hope that, there will be a day where I don't have to watch Corey Perry do it, and I can watch Colton Dach do it, and I'd much rather watch Colton Dach do it, because he has the ability to stand in front of the net and score and be fast. And two, I just love to see it because for so long we had so many guys that were afraid of standing in front of the net. We haven't had a guy that, consistently that was their, main job for a while. We had guys that would do it, but it would be like kind of maybe 50-50, and then they still just look really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and Colton Dach does that, and also he's a bigger body, which they need, and he's a player that pulls you into the fight. He'll get underneath the other team's skin. He's going to engage. He engaged in Seattle last year. It was really fun to watch him in the playoffs, and he seems to have not missed a beat now with Rockford.
Mm-hmm.
It's needed for the Hawks, and so far so good with him. Like, just stay healthy.
Knock on all the wood. Kamesa was in net for that last one. Once again, defenseman, where are you? I would like to I don't know if you agree with this, that Boris Kachuk has been taken off the milk carton. And I'd like to slab just defensemen in general, Chicago and Rockford. Where are you? Because you're not here. That is mainly what I have for Rockford. So do you want to talk about the Tampa game first?
So, and as far as Rockford, I guess I'm going to need to start watching Rockford games because I'd like to at least take a peek and see how at least two of the defensemen are doing. So
EDM and Allen.
Yeah, I'll have to schedule that for a watch because I haven't really watched any. I'm just getting highlights and stuff like that. So, and now you want to go into the fun stuff?
Are we classifying this as fun?
Well, if you consider just doing nothing but losing games fun, then yes, we have fun for you.
So much fun. Tampa, first off, before we get into the nitty gritty, 3 stars for the Tampa game. This was a stretch, just because I really didn't think anybody looked good. They didn't they didn't win, obviously, but they really didn't deserve to win because nobody was really putting effort in, aside from these 3 guys and Connor Bedard. Go Ryan Donato for the 3rd star, 2nd star Boris Kachuk, and 1st star Peter Mrazek. Because even though Mrazek let in a couple of goals, with the way that Tampa was playing and the absence of our skill set, it could have been way worse. That could have been a 7-2 game. It could have been obnoxious. Also, folks, if you want, we've explained offsides a couple of times, either on the podcast or via TikTok. If you want a clear example, like a video that clearly explains what offsides is, go watch Sergachev's goal from that game. It's the most cut and dry in terms of offsides that you will be able to see.
Okay.
Am I petty? Is that too petty?
Yeah, it's not too petty.
All right. Anything you want to add about Tampa?
Oh, sure. Let's see. where would we start? Basically, we went down to Tampa, we won. Connor Bedard put on a show. I don't think Tampa was all that happy with it. Tampa held us to 15 shots on goal. That's 5 a period. 5 a period. I don't have the stats here right on front of me, but I think there was a couple periods where there was just like 3. They decided to clamp down and play the way good teams play and not give us room to breathe and took away everything. And they took, by the third period, the Hawks were about done. There wasn't a lot of fight in them. There wasn't a lot of pushback after Tampa started the stranglehold. Good thing, Reichel with his power play goal. He was finally on the power play, so that was a plus. Besides that, we had I believe Isaac finally played that game.
Yeah.
I believe Isaac came in. He played well. There wasn't much else to it. Let me see. Let me see if there's anything else that I can think of.
I also, and this was just it was just bad in general, but there was and this has definitely been like a common thing throughout the whole weekend of the games that I watched. A lot of stupid penalties. Unnecessary, just stupid mistakes. Penalties that we don't need to be taking.
Yeah, Kaiser with a couple penalties, a delay of game penalty that wasn't good. Again, we bring up the fighting. There was the non-instigator call in that game, which I didn't quite understand, and the offsides, which I didn't understand. Korchinski did not have a good game. First game this year that the Pickle really didn't have a good game either.
I don't think anybody had a good game.
He was caught flat-footed 3 or 4 times in the third period where people just went around him. That usually doesn't happen a lot to the Pickle. The Tampa made it very hard to play against them. And then by about the third period, the Hawks just laid down. Not the greatest look that you want from your team. But that's a Stanley Cup contender who knows full well how to lock down games. They got the thrill of learning that in 2015 from your Chicago Blackhawks. And they understand, and that's when they started to understand talent only gets you so far. You have to keep the puck out of the net at times. And they really went about their business, and still the game was only 4-2. So, there was glimmers of hope. You thought maybe it was possible, but the play on the ice definitely let you know that nothing was going to happen.
Once again, a good Corey Perry garbage goal.
Yes. And I believe the Tampa game when somebody in my row went old school. That's for all you people listening on here. We've told you many, many times, if you're starting to go to the United Center, wait for whistle.
Yes.
Okay. You don't come up when the puck's in play. Well, now, sometimes you come up when the puck's not in play, but by the time you get to your row, the puck's in play.
Yep.
Now, the old school way, and the way in the hockey world, if you go to other rabid hockey places, you are to take a knee or crouch down still in the aisle. Make sure the people behind you can see, and you're not telling anybody in that row to get up. There was a girl, obviously she must be a listener. I've got to figure she's a listener of this show. She basically crouched down right next to me, waited, and Corey Perry scored. So from her, taking the decency to not cut up. She saw the goal and she allowed me to see the goal. That's the way you do it. That's why I call it old school, because back in the olden days, if you even attempted to go in your role while the puck was in play, there would be about 4 people yelling at you and you wouldn't be let in anyways. That's kind of gone by the wayside. But for our listeners out there, go old school. Wait in the aisle. Wait till play is done.
I mean, I still have a good time chirping at people who are up while the puck's in play.
Yeah, I don't chirp anymore, but that's for reasons we don't need to discuss on this podcast.
It's for the new generation to chirp.
Yes.
You've passed it on.
So, for your listeners, that's what we call going old school. It's a good habit to get into, because depending on when you're coming back, sometimes that line's pretty long. If you get stuck in the play, just hang out in the aisle. Just make sure the people behind you can see. You're all good. All right, I went off on a tangent and I got lost. Where were we?
We were talking about the Tampa game, unless you're done with it.
I'm pretty sure we could be done with the Tampa game, couldn't we?
All right. That means believe that means we go to Nashville?
Yeah, we can go to Nashville. You want to go to Nashville?
Right? Is that the next one?
Yeah, Nashville's the next game. Yes.
All right. My 3 stars, which are going to be the same 3 stars for the next 2 games, because once again, these are the only 3 players that have been impressing me this past weekend, and that is Alex Vlasic, Philip Kurashev, and Connor Bedard. I think my favorite moment was when Vlasic intercepted. It's like the middle of the first, end of the first. Nashville's trying to pass to one of their teammates. Vlasic intercepts, and he just runs up the ice. He wasn't able to capitalize a goal off of it, but it was still very entertaining to see. And there was the effort, which, as I say all the time, is the most important for me. But you're able to see, while everybody else is taking a snoozer, he's going for it.
Yeah.
What else about Nashville?
I will agree with all of that. I thought Pickle played a really good game. Core again with some struggles. Korchinski, good, bad, ugly, as we've said like every podcast. I thought Isaac looked good again. So I'm back trumpeting him big time. I would not have a problem if Kaiser goes down and Isaac were to stay up whenever these defensemen come back.
They're not going to do that.
Go ahead.
The other things that I have is that there's the return of Taylor Hall. Soderblom was in net. I know he plays for Nashville, but as someone who did love him once, Kevin Lankinen does look better than when he was a Blackhawk, and so I'm just proud of his individual progress. I do not support the team that he plays for, but you do like to see players that were once, I don't know if shit on is the best word, but there were a lot of people in Chicago that were really hating on Kevin Lankinen when he was the goaltender here. So it's nice to see him do better. And overall, to encapsulate what I saw from the Nashville game, and really from this weekend, to quote the TV show Shoresy, which crusty old guy still hasn't watched yet.
He won't be.
They don't hate to lose. With the exception of Connor Bedard, they don't hate to lose. They seem fine with it. And I don't like that.
Yeah, we can get into that after we talk about the games. I don't think you're off on that. There is an effort that's not there, and there's taking the easy way, this and that. But if we go to the Nashville game,
yep.
Again, all I've heard from people all year is, oh, that schedule. They had such a hard schedule. You just wait. Well, Nashville's not a good team, and I saw Nashville push us around all over the friggin' ice.
Mhm.
Nashville's third goal, fourth line against fourth line, and their fourth line ate us up. And that's Ryan Johnson, that's Mac, and that's disappointing. Can't have that. Can't have those guys getting pushed around like that.
No.
They had a ton more energy and a ton more want. So that's 2 games in a row, the Tampa game and then the Nashville game, that if you look at them, there was one team that was hungry and there was one that wasn't. And it's surprising.
We hold because crusty old guy's camera has.
In looking to win. So
Can you repeat the last sentence? Because your camera froze.
yeah, it froze. It said my internet is unstable.
Just
Or
like
do you think that was code for saying that I am unstable? We don't know. What was the last thing I said?
one team was hungry, one team was not.
Yes, and we were not the hungry team. When you're not the better team, you should at least be hungry.
Yeah.
It's a disturbing trend right now. That I don't get it. But this is a team right now that would rather go around people than through them. And these are all third and fourth line players. I can understand if Connor Bedard doesn't want to go through somebody.
Right.
But if you're Dickinson, go through somebody. Okay. So there was that. Bloom again with not a great game. There's rebounds out there. He's got to get better in holding on to the puck. He can't just be giving up rebounds at times. He's got to eat the puck and go for the face-off. There's a little chatter of maybe having Mrazek just take more starts. Mrazek has no future on this team. You want to see if Bloom is your future, so you continue to alternate them. If it's more losses, it's more losses. Heard somebody else say, send Bloom down. At no way.
Up.
Right. At no point, except for maybe a 1-game little fling, does Drew Commesso come up here for any length of time. You need to nurture him. And for me, that's 2 years in Rockford.
At least.
So, get that out of your mind. But that was the most heart-wrenching thing was there wasn't a lot of fight. This is another bottom feeder just like us. And it's Nashville, for the love of friggin' God. I can't hear. At some point in time, somebody's going to need to explain to these kids, who, granted, it's mostly just the older men now on the team anyways, that if you don't want to have effort every night, that's one thing, but you damn well better have effort against Nashville, and you damn well better have an effort against St. Louis.
Yeah.
So there's a slight rant. Let's move on. We had another game too, didn't we?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, things get any better?
No, and the 3 stars stay the same. Because I really didn't like anybody else's playing. I thought Mrazek looked fine. I know we talked about this a little bit, but I'm just gonna say it again. I'm so over Corey Perry, and I'm so over Taylor Hall at this point. I don't completely say that I like wish the trade didn't happen, because I do like the Foligno aspect of the trade. But I'm not seeing the point of having Taylor Hall on the roster right now. I don't. I think I'll hop on my soapbox a little bit and have an opinion. I think, they praised all of this having veteran presence for Connor Bedard when he comes to Chicago. This first pick person that's going to come to Chicago that's going to nurture Connor Bedard. First of all, this is the second time that Taylor Hall has been injured, and the season's pretty early. You brought Taylor Hall as a fluff piece. You know, you had the number one pick that could have been playing with Connor Bedard, but you sent him away because you didn't want him. You didn't want that used toy anymore. And so then you brought a different one, and you're trying to sell us a worse story of what we could have had originally. I don't see the point of it on the roster. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I will stop off my box now.
Okay, nice. Hockey princess going on her soapbox a little bit. You know, you brought in two players. Foligno has definitely been as advertised.
Yeah.
That is a leader. That is a leader. That is somebody that the young players can mold their presence around. As far as Taylor Hall, still going to give him a little bit of a slide. I don't know exactly how healthy he is. I'm with you. I haven't seen much. You know, as far as, you know, the Buffalo game, you know, I heard from other places that, you know, geez, they played really well. This is a game that they could have won. That's your buddy Jay, who I don't listen to a lot anymore, but that's what Jay said. And obviously me and Jay aren't watching the same game. Yeah, it wasn't a bad showing against a team that's also a bottom feeder, because granted, they've got a couple good pieces, but without their main gun, they're not a great team either.
Right.
And you still didn't win many battles. You still didn't really get into the fight that much with it. So, you know, I don't know. That third goal was a little rough. You know, Seth gets caught a little bit. The guy's to the outside, though. He flips one up that Mrazek probably should stop, but he doesn't, and then that's that. But still, there wasn't a lot of fight in them either. There was no desperation till right at the end. They have to play that way for 60 minutes. This is still a team that takes the easy route, gets rid of the pass a half a second early so they don't get hit too hard. Instead of eating the puck, they just throw it out. I understand that's part of Luke's philosophy this year, especially the young defensemen. He doesn't want them thinking too much. So if they don't know what to do, bank it off the boards and try to get it to neutral ice. I understand that, but at times they're taking the easier route. And that is a bad habit that has to be squashed, and it has to start this year. If you're ever even thinking about building a winner, you know, the Hawk Dynasty teams, I've always stated, everybody always would talk about the 2010 team because you had Big Buff and you had this and that. I always believed the toughest teams were the 13 and 15 teams, and not because of the hits they gave out, because that team would take a beating to make a play. Nicholas Hjalmarsson would hold on to the puck for that half a second longer and get lit up like a Christmas tree, but make the play. This team has not learned that. And that goes for the young defensemen and most of our young forwards. Again, the other good thing from the game is Kurshev's an NHL player.
Yeah.
We were unsure. 2 years ago, he was sticking his nose in places, and every time he stuck his nose in, he was on the ice. Anybody came by him, he was on the ice. He's strong on his skates. He's playing really well. He's, 10 games, 10 points. That gets it done in my book. And that's not all just because he's playing with Connor Bedard. He has been a bright spot. I think he's just
one of the only other ones that's actually showing me some sort of effort. That he isn't just gonna,
Yes.
They're not doing anything.
Yes. And I don't know when this all gets addressed.
At what
When you
how
look
many
at this,
games do you have to lose? Do you have to lose to Columbus before Luke finally is like, all right?
well, yeah, I mean, if you lose to Columbus, everything goes kind of off the rails of Luke's a great coach, this and that, and everything else. The problem being is this really isn't a young team. We have a couple young players at the forward position. I'm okay with them learning this.
Yeah.
But I've got Dickinson, I've got Tyler Johnson, I've got Taylor Ranish. I got all these other guys that are still taking the easier route.
Yeah.
For the love of God, take the puck and go to the middle of the ice. Yes, you might get hit. You don't have to curl off to the boards where it's nice and safe. And again, that needs to start with Dickinson, who probably out of the group does a better job than most. But Taylor Radish, Tyler Johnson, who I don't know if he's playing or not. But they have to start going through players a little bit. Just for the sheer fact that that's the way you play in the NHL. So we'll see. You bring up a fantastic point. There's a game tomorrow night. You lose that game, you're out of excuses. Smart. You will have then lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'd like to hear how we're close, we're this, we're that. No, we suck.
Especially because for those who don't know, Columbus is going through their own situation. Patrick Laine is getting healthy, scratched. Johnny Hockey's sitting out for the last 10 minutes of the third. They're a hot mess and a half. So, yeah, do you have to lose to Columbus? Do you have to lose to San Jose? Does Trevor Zegras have to give you a hat trick in the United Center for them to finally realize, like, hey, we're not putting in any effort?
Yeah, and again, it's not that they're not putting in any effort. They are, but it's not for the full game. It's not for the full game. It's in spurts when it's easy.
Right.
This is not a hardworking team.
No.
They're just not. That needs to change. Just for the fact that that needs to be modeled for the younger kids. And hopefully it does. Again, beforehand, we talked about them battling, but just losing the battles. And now there's just at times not a lot of battling. They're content just going back and forth. And again, somebody's got to sneeze. Yes?
I think also
You do? I am so proud of you.
We go back to Rockford really quick, where you said Colton Dach is going to engage. He's going to bring you into the fight.
Yes.
We don't have that in Chicago right now. Or if we do, it's not being shown by anybody. But there's nobody's doing that.
Yes, I would like it. I mean, I don't know if it's not in their makeup. I mean, that's a role for RJ and Mac. That's Mackenzie Atwhistle and Reese Johnson. They're bottom line players. They should be getting a little extra physical and giving somebody an extra shot occasionally, just to say, hey, we're here. We're present. We're playing hockey. We're not playing baseball. So yeah, I mean, they have players that can do it. There needs to be a full all-in team deciding enough of this shit. Let's really mix it up. And I'm hoping that starts tomorrow. I understand that they play safe, and I understand why Luke has them playing safe, because they're not very talented, and if they get too aggressive and too crazy, they could get blown out at any time.
But they're already getting blown out at every time.
Yeah, but still, something needs to change. This is loss number 4. We'll see. Right now, it's pretty disappointing.
I really didn't think that you were correct, which is a mistake on my end. as I
It
know,
usually is. I've noticed that with
where
society, it's usually their mistake.
over the summer you said that this year is going to be worse than last year, and I was like, that can't be true. Last year was awful. This is worse.
Well, yes, it's always good to listen to crusty old guy. There's not a lot of talent on this team either. You've got a lot of veterans with nothing that's going on, kind of stuck in a position. Maybe they need to turn it on 3 weeks before the trade deadline to get out of here, but that's it. So again, a lot of going through the motions, and that's also a Luke issue, which on here on this podcast we're Luke fans, but
I'm a little mad at Luke right now.
it's also your issue. It's your issue to get these guys engaged, and I don't see a lot of engagement. So hopefully better things on the horizon.
Do you have anybody that you want to put in the corner real quick before we head out?
I thought I did, but
Aside from everybody.
I'm gonna lay off of that. We're gonna keep our corner about people we're putting on the pedestal. So, in the corner will be Philip Kershaw. Welcome to the NHL. I think you're gonna have a career here. I don't know what that looks like at the end of the day. I don't know if he's the third line forward or if he's a first line forward. That I don't know. He's not shown enough to be a top line player right now, but he's shown that he deserves to be in the NHL for a while. So Kerr, keep it up.
Second line, you got NASCAR, Reichel, and Kerr, maybe?
Yep. And again, to the girl who went old school and waited for the whistle, thank you. That's all I got.
All right. So just as a reminder, wait for whistle. Don't get up all the pucks in play. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can feel free to send us a message on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or email. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, however you listen to or watch us ramble. And then we will be back at it next week.